everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we have a different kind of video. It's gonna be a little bit spookier. It's not really spooky, but it's like darker than everything else that I've made. I'm gonna be talking about the case of Kendrick Johnson. Now, if you haven't heard anything about this case, it is mind-blowing. It's so confusing. It's unfathomable, everything that's happened in this case. But without further ado, I will explain everything. Okay, if I look down at all, I'm looking at my notes because I took notes and I read a lot of articles to try and figure out, make sure I had the most accurate information. Okay, so Kendrick Johnson was a 17-year-old high school student. He was described as like a very sweet and shy boy, but he was a 3-student athlete. So he was kind of, I guess you could say he was popular, I guess. Like, he played a lot of sports and his dream was to be a professional football player. So yeah, that's basically a little bit about him. Yeah, he was an overall good kid, didn't get in much trouble, but he was being bullied by 2 white boys. That will come into play a little bit later, but just remember that. So this case happened in 2013 at Loudness High School in Valdosta. I don't know if that's how you say it, Valdosta, Georgia. Like any other teenager, Kendrick is at high school. So he's at high school, and then the school day ends, and he had a lot of extracurriculars because he was a 3-sport athlete. So it wasn't uncommon for him to come home later, but if he were to come home later, then he would definitely let his parents know. And he wouldn't be the type of kid to just not come home. So it's an ordinary day at school, and then all of a sudden Kendrick never comes home, and his parents start to get worried, as any parents would. The night goes on. His parents had seen nothing, heard nothing, but the last place that Kendrick was seen was the gymnasium at school. Now, I believe this school had 2 gymnasiums, an older one and a newer one, and I believe this was the older one that he was last seen in, but I don't remember. So yeah, he doesn't come home. His parents don't know anything. Last place he was seen was the gym. So the next day, as I can imagine, kids were getting mats and stuff out for gym class or for, personal fitness or something of that sort. So there's a bunch of gym mats for wrestling in the gym in the corner rolled up to get out of the way so there could be space. So the kids, I can imagine, are going to get mats out, or a lot of students also kept their stuff, their shoes, their bags in the rolled up mat to avoid paying for a school gym locker. So maybe kids were going in there going towards the mats to keep stuff in there or to unroll it for wrestling practice or something. Now, this is where it gets a little bit odd. They find Kendrick rolled up in a mat. The mat is not on the ground, like laying like this, but it is upside down. He's upside down, his feet are up. This case is so weird. So he's in the mat rolled up. So automatically everybody, including the investigators, believe it is an accident because he must have been trying to reach for shoes. His one arm was like up reaching for shoes, and there were shoes underneath him. So it was thought that he's reaching for his shoes to grab them, like many students, kept their shoes in there. He was just trying to grab his shoes. Accident was in there, and he died of asphyxiation because of that. Well, this is where the inconsistencies start. Okay. The mat hole in diameter, meaning the circle where his body was in, how he would get into the mat. The hole was 14 inches in diameter. Kendrick being a 17-year-old boy, his shoulders are 19 inches across. So for him to get in that mat in the first place, he would have to be really, really scrunched up to even fit. So it's a little bit strange that he was found in the mat like that, because it would have been very difficult for him to get in there in the first place. And also, this is just my personal thinking. He's a 3-sport athlete. If he wanted to get his shoes and he saw that he could not physically fit in the hole, then he would just pick up the mat and move it and grab his shoes. But here's where another inconsistency is. Because he's lying upside down for so long, blood starts to rush to his head and starts to come out of his mouth, his nose, his ears, his eyes, everywhere. The shoes underneath him, you would think that there's blood all over them because his face had been bleeding directly on them, but there's no blood on the shoes. Instead, the shoes are lying in a pool of blood, which to me seems he was lying upside down, bleeding, but to stage it as an accident, somebody put the shoes in his blood, flipped him back over, and thought that he would keep bleeding and it would look like, he was bleeding on the shoes, but that didn't happen and the shoes are spotless. So already there's a lot of inconsistencies in this case that point towards some type of manipulation. So the investigators are thinking that this is an accident. So they're like, let's just check the video cameras of the school and see if we can figure out what happened and see, how this played out. Well, there's like a few security cameras in the gym. There's one facing specifically towards the mats, but there's others facing towards the center, wherever. There's a video of Kendrick walking, but then all of a sudden it jumps to other people a few hours later. And they check all the security cameras in that gym and figure out that they all skip over the time that Kendrick would have died. So obviously, me logically thinking, and a lot of people logically thinking, these cameras have been manipulated with and the evidence has been manipulated with because all the cameras are skipping over the same time frame. Say Kendrick died at 3, all the cameras are skipping 2 to 4, 2 to 5, 1 to 6. Like they're all skipping that time window so that there's no evidence of what happened, which seems to me that they manipulated the cameras so that everybody would think it's an accident. Well, Kendrick's parents are starting to realize this, the inconsistencies, and they're seeing them and they're questioning them and they're thinking that something is not right. So the first autopsy report shows that he died of asphyxiation. That's what the first, person said. But all these inconsistencies are not pointing towards that it was an accident. He physically wouldn't fit in the hole. There's blood underneath the shoes that he was, on top of, but there's no blood on the shoes. There's also a shoe bag next to his body with other shoes in it. So I know a possible scenario of his death was a robbery gone wrong, but nothing was taken from him. There's shoes tucked up in front of his legs. I'll see if I can find the picture. Warning, here's a picture. But as you can see, there's shoes wrapped up right by his knees, and then he's on top of shoes as well. So if this was a robbery, they really didn't take anything. So yeah, the first autopsy report shows it's of asphyxiation, but there's too many inconsistencies. So they get his body exhumed, and his parents do a private autopsy report with a private investigator, and it shows that the cause of his death was not asphyxiation, but was actually blunt force trauma to his neck. So that proves that his cause of death was not from him being like asphyxiation, but it was from him being really hit very hard in the neck. So already that's weird. And the case obviously changes from accidental to homicide. So yes, they're trying to figure out who did this, and because that they were so negligent in the beginning to any other reasons of death, and they just deemed it as an accident from the beginning, there's not many leads, and there's not much evidence to pick from to try to pull leads because all the evidence was accidental, so they didn't check anything for DNA or anything like that. But they change it and they obviously start doing this. Oh my gosh, I almost left out a big thing. Okay, the second autopsy report, not only do they figure out that he died from blunt force trauma, but they see that all of his organs, from his pelvis all the way up to his head, are completely gone, missing. They don't know where they are. And instead of them being there, they were replaced with newspapers and wood sheddings. Now, as I read, wood shedding is not too uncommon when it comes to bodies that are very badly decomposed, but newspaper is not a practice at all, and it shouldn't be in his body. So all of his organs are there, and they try to figure out when his organs disappeared, and they figure out that after the first autopsy, his first examiner said that they had thrown up the organs because they were so badly decomposed. So the funeral home never received him with organs. So, and they had resumed him a little bit after he was first buried. That's so weird. His organs are gone, and this is just, it just points to more and more foul play. And I saw that one possible scenario was that his organs are being sold to the black market, which I don't know much about, but all of his organs are missing, so it's like, I don't know. But the newspaper, that's still so weird. Why would they fill his body with newspaper? And why are all of his organs right here gone? I know they would probably be in very bad shape, but newspaper, like, that just doesn't, that's not right. So yes, the parents start filing a lot of lawsuits against the school, because the parents, what I think, personally, what the parents were mainly thinking was that their kid was murdered by his bullies, which the school did not do much about. So the parents sued the school for unlawful death and everything, because they think that if the school would have done something about the bullies, that he would still be alive. And in the video, there are 2 white males walking behind him, but they cannot be identified as the bullies because there's just 2 white males. And if they were identified as the 2 guys, there's not much evidence to point that they murdered him. So there's not much evidence that they can do. There's nothing, they can't hold them because they don't have anything to hold them, any evidence to hold them with. So yeah, and they filed a lawsuit against the police station, the state, like everything. They were just trying to figure out what happened to their son, and it seemed like everything was a dead end, and there were so many inconsistencies that the story was not making sense for them. All they wanted to do was figure out the last few moments of their son's life, and they can't figure out anything. So it's proven that he's been hit in his neck instead of dying of asphyxiation. There's so many inconsistencies. The shoes, the body being filled with newspapers, the cameras suddenly missing that evidence. It just doesn't make sense. After that, they're just like, they try to find everything that they can. The police station does. They're trying to figure out everything that they can. They reopen the case, trying to figure out, who this possibly was and everything. And it's deemed a homicide, like I already said. But they're trying to figure out all of that, and they can't find anything. So they rebury Kendrick's body, and they're trying to find clues, but there's nothing. They're getting hundreds of phone calls, but those are just, they're dead ends, and some people are just saying stuff that they heard in the street. So there's not much. And all the lawsuits, many of them didn't go in the parents' favor, and they ended up having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for their own expenses. But they also had to pay a lot of legal fees, and I believe they had to pay somebody that they were suing, they had to pay them for legal fees as well. And when explaining how the parents feel themselves, they explained that they feel that their child was stuffed like a garbage bin. He was stuffed with newspaper, and that was so heartbreaking to the parents. They described him as a garbage bin. It's a reasonable thought, like that his body shouldn't be filled with newspaper. And if his organs were to be thrown out, that should be filed so that the funeral home knows and the parents know. But that's somehow got lost. I don't understand. So none of that is making sense. None of that's making sense. So time goes on, there's still no leads. This first happened, he died in, I believe, November of 2013. And the most recent news that they have is from 2018, which is from another coroner's report stating that he was hit, blunt force trauma to his neck, and that's what caused him to die. But they have even more evidence that he was hit with a 45-pound dumbbell, which would be consistent with the setting of the gym that he was found in. So he was hit with the dumbbell. But they have no leads, they have nothing, and they decided to close the case. I don't even know what to say. I'll give you my theory now, but my theory is basically that since he's being harassed by so many students, somebody hit him with a dumbbell in the gym and then made it look like an accident, told their parents, which probably are wealthy or something, and they have bribed everybody to cover it up and make it seem as though it is an accident. the police station, the school, somebody that has a lot of money that is able to bribe all of them to make the narrative that they want. Because nobody would lie about this if there wasn't a motive to, if there wasn't a reason to. You wouldn't just lie about a case and lie about evidence just because. There would have to be a motive. They're being bribed, they're being held to do this, something like that. There has to be some manipulation. There has to be a manipulator that has the power to change all of it, which is completely unfair to him, and it's so awful. I just can't imagine like not knowing the last moments of your child's life and it being a possibility that you will never know. And there's so many inconsistencies and manipulation and like conspiracy. Like it's all just really dark and really sick. That there's nothing. Like there's nothing. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm hoping to do more videos like this on my channel. So give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Share it with all your little crime junkies. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to watch my other videos. Go look, guys, pause. Go look at my TikTok. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye.